Hey there, folks. Welcome to this week's astrological report for August 5 through August 11 of 2025. I hope you're all doing well. So this week looks like there's going to be a lot going on with Mars. Mars is the star of the show, as there's a lot of different aspects for Mars this week. And it starts off with Mars reaching this last critical degree of Virgo the next day and a half, but then by tomorrow on Wednesday, Mars will ingress Libra. So that's a big change of dynamics and a change of gears generally for people in the world. But it's even more important because Mars is entering a very rare configuration called a kite. Also, it's kind of wrapped up in a grand trine. I'll explain the meaning of that as I go through this report. But it's basically Mars making a trine to Pluto, a trine to Uranus, and an opposition to Saturn and Neptune. So Mars connecting to all of the outer planets in these new signs that we've never seen before. And it's basically showing that there's going to be a lot of action in the world, new developments in the world, because this is also the world point. It's kind of a culmination point from Mars to Saturn-Neptune conjunction that took place back in April and May of 2024. So it's like things are coming to a head in a very significant way that's showing this development of this new era that's trying to be established in the world. So it's going to definitely be on the world stage, but it'll also be, in individual lives as well, showing new developments. And it is overall a positive configuration that's building up this week with this kite, but there's still a lot of tension all throughout this week. Plus, we're building up to a full moon. That's the other main event of the week ahead. Currently, the moon is at the last couple degrees of Sagittarius today, and then we'll be ingressing Capricorn today, waxing all through Capricorn and halfway through Aquarius and becoming full by late Friday night into Saturday morning, full moon in Aquarius. So I'll be talking about that, of course. So peak emotional energy is building this week. And again, there's still a lot of tension overall with this Mars, even though the bigger picture and what it's connected to for the longer term is overall positive. So I'll try to explain it the best I can. But basically, Mars will be making a lot of aspects to all these different planets. And Mars will have a lot of support. So Mars is entering a position it normally doesn't like to be in, but because it's getting support from other planets, it has more potential than it usually does in the sign of Libra. So again, I'll explain that as I'm going through this report. And then it looks like by next week, on Monday, we have Mercury stationing direct. So all this week, Mercury is slowing down, and it's going to reach 4 degrees. It's already at 5 degrees right now, so it's only going to go another degree and a half or so, and then so basically be really slow coming back to where it entered its shadow before its retrograde. So next Monday, Mercury stationing direct is pretty positive as well. And then Monday night is when Venus is conjunct Jupiter. So all this week, Venus is approaching Jupiter, as I said last week. That is a very positive conjunction. It's one of the most positive that happens every 12 years. And this one is definitely aligned with the United States because by next Monday into Tuesday of next week, this conjunction will be right on the United States sun in the birth chart. So most likely some sort of a financial deal or some sort of a dynamic is going to show by next week, based on everything playing out this week, that leads to some sort of a positive development around money, the economy, some sort of decision or development in the government, something going on in that way. And then we also have by next Monday, Saturn making a sextile to Uranus. And overall, that minor grand trine is also building up in place with all the outer planets. Again, talking about the world and this development for the new era that's building up for the next year and really moving forward by next year of 2026. So there's no escaping it. The world is changing in major ways, like it or not. And we're going to see a lot of developments for that the next couple weeks, it looks like. Still in Leo season, of course. We're halfway through Leo season. And then this Aquarius full moon opposite the Leo sun. Very social full moon as it culminates in Aquarius. But Aquarius is also about group and community, science, politics, and so a lot of these different categories, things will be culminating and coming out and a turning point. All right, so that's kind of the gist of what we have going on. It does look like the sun is also making an inconjunction to the north node. So things that are happening where we're focused will also have to make an adjustment for our future and what's pulling us into our future and our destiny. All right, so that's what I'm seeing. Like I said, the moon is at the last couple degrees right now as I'm making this in Sagittarius, but by the time you're watching this, the moon will probably be in Capricorn. So a change of mood is going to be coming in for today, a change of circumstances. As the moon is in transit through Capricorn and Aquarius for 5 days, it'll be ruled by Saturn on this world point. So again, there's a lot of world significance, I believe, this week in what's happening. Now, I also, with all the earth events that's been building up for so long, there's just been so many different earthquakes and volcanoes and all this stuff. Again, I associate that with this Saturn-Neptune conjunction on the world point in this rare way. And that's not going away. Again, these are going to be exactly conjunct perfectly by next February of 2026. I've been more concerned about the Northwest. I really feel like the Cascadia is ready. It's probably not that far away from a major event up there sooner or later, either volcano or earthquake, but this last one was in Russia, so it's hard to predict those things exactly where they're going to be, but just know that we're in this time frame. The earth itself is changing as well, and that's it's on all kinds of different levels. It's just basically extreme earth events in this phase of our life, because Neptune kind of represents all the flooding events. I talked about that earlier in the year. And this Mars culminating that, it could show a short-term culmination in earth events this week, but I still feel like overall we're in this window of time where a lot of big stuff can be happening over this next year. All right, so yeah, Saturn will rule the moon, circumstances, and mood for the next 5 days, and then the moon will ingress Pisces, and Jupiter will become in charge of the circumstances with that Venus reaching it. So again, I feel like by next week, something is really positive here showing, and I'll talk about who's most affected by this Venus-Jupiter conjunction, and where it's taking place, and if you have any personal planets that this will be on. All right, so with that said, I'm going to start going through the chart here, starting on Tuesday. Remember, if you're new here, I appreciate you subscribing. For the new subscribers, check the description. I write everything out for you. I put timestamps down so you can follow along throughout the week. All right, so starting here on Tuesday, August 5, as I said, first thing in the morning, the moon is reaching the last couple degrees of Sagittarius and forming this square with Mars, as Mars has now reached the 29th degree. So remember, 29 is a critical degree in astrology. It's a sense of urgency for things to change and end. And this has been a really critical place for Mars, because we're going to have a solar eclipse about 27 degrees of Virgo late September coming up, and Mars was moving over that eclipse degree. So a lot of the things happening were also kind of connected to eclipse vibes, that September is going to be highlighting. So plus, it's just a fateful area of the chart where Virgo is right now. So Mars really bringing it closer to us as it went in transit through this. So I think that that's a turning point as well, as Mars is going to start to separate from this critical area. But the true separation will be once it gets past the opposition with Saturn and Neptune. That's the ultimate culmination that's building up. But for the next day and a half, it is a critical place still. It's the last critical degree, a sense of urgency for things to end and change. And Mars, at this last degree, is being ruled by Mercury, which is slowing down and reaching its stationary degree here this week. But Mercury is still retrograde, ruling this Mars at a critical degree. So it does feel like things are still a bit critical. And if we just look at the aspect list, there, even though, again, I feel like that Mars configuration coming in with this kite is overall positive, and we can work with it in positive ways, and I'll explain how we can do that. But it's still, there's a lot of tension still in the air. So just be aware of that and know that people could be a little bit extra critical with this dynamic in place here. It looks like perhaps Thursday is going to have some of the easier aspects where that configuration is really showing and we can work with it. But there's still a lot of tension all throughout the week here, every day of the week. But maybe August 7, Thursday, could be one of the easier days to work with it, generally speaking. So just know for the next couple of days, there could be a sense of criticalness, edginess going on here, and people rushing as well. It's like it's also, also it's been about health matters for a lot of people here. There could be a temporary turning point in the short term for people dealing with certain health conditions. Somehow there could be, something that happens, or just kind of a temporary turning point where things can ease up a little bit around health. But overall, with the South Node here and eclipses here, there's still a bigger picture generally for health for the next year. All right, so as the moon is squaring Mars this morning, it's really showing that tension. The moon is the emotions and the feelings, and things are about to change because both the moon and Mars are at this critical degree. So as the day goes on, the mood will start to change, become a little more critical and serious. So just know that there could be kind of moodiness, edginess going on with certain people today, this morning. So just understand why, or if you feel it, just understand why. This can be a sense of urgency to be doing something, taking action on something. People might need to be doing something. They may not feel like doing it in certain circumstances or situations. So it's just a little bit of that emotional pressure going on. Right now, the moon in Sagittarius is being ruled by this Jupiter in Cancer, which comes back to, home, family, safety, security, comfort. So the mood and the circumstances might want to be connected to the things that we enjoy or want to do. And Mars might be saying, no, we have work to be done, or again, there's just something kind of pushing people, and there could be some emotional agitation and, like I said, some moodiness before this moon changes signs, which is what will happen as the day goes forward here. We move it forward by the hour. So it looks like the moon will change signs and ingress Capricorn by 10 o'clock a.m. on the West Coast. So afternoon hours for other people. And right as the moon ingresses Capricorn, it's now being ruled, like I said, by the Saturn on the world point. And this is a cardinal sign, and the moon has a lot of light on it. It's building up, so it's going to be waxing all through Capricorn the next 2.5 days. So as the moon comes to Capricorn, it just tends to change the mood to be a little more serious. It's more about maturity and being punctual, and there's a strong emotional need for morality and doing what's right. Even though that's somewhat subjective, it's still like whatever you feel is right. There'll be more of a pressure to be doing those things. And it's ultimately about goals and ambitions, looking at your future. Where do you stand with work? Have you achieved anything at all over this last month since the Capricorn full moon? Have you changed anything about work or what you're working on? So just, again, it becomes an emotional seriousness, a little more dry with people's self-expression. But on the other hand, we have the sun in Leo. This is the season to be more bright and sunny and self-expressive and creative. And there is a need for more fun and recreational things. So as the moon comes into Capricorn, it's kind of at odds with this sunnier, more expressive, fun, heartfelt Leo side. So we have to make some adjustments too the next 2.5 days between these two areas. Having fun, work. It's like this next 2 days, again, people are just maybe feeling the pressure in some way. And often I tell you guys this, that the best way to work with this moon phase is by getting the job done and being mature and responsible. And the more you get done versus procrastinating, putting things off, that's not going to make the mood feel very good in this position. So just get things done and then play. Try to find a balance and try to find time for both. But it still shows that, this is the side of the lunar phase where there's a lot of worldly stuff, a lot of government stuff is going to be in the news and coming out. It's also about rules and laws and systems and structures that are changing on the world level here. So just more of this professional side. And again, goals, ambitions for your future, and really getting in touch with where you stand with work and the future around what you want to achieve. All right, so that's the big change of mood today. Again, a little more dry, a little more serious that comes in. But also the moon is in this position where it's a cardinal sign. So it's also about taking action, initiating things. And again, with Mars here at this last degree of Virgo, there's a criticalness about that work and getting things done, in some way, maybe feeling rushed a little bit. But the moon in Capricorn wants to slow things down, do things right, and not overly rush. But yet, as it builds this square with Saturn and Neptune, it's like, that's why Saturn doesn't want to be here in Aries, because Aries is about doing things quickly, and Saturn is more about taking your time and doing things right, having a good solid plan. So there's a lot of tension with that type of dynamic for the next couple days between kind of maybe feeling rushed, doing things quickly versus planning appropriately. But there's still kind of a heaviness here today, that's going to be building up as the moon squares Saturn and Neptune. It's also in conjunct to this Uranus down here. So it feels like as the day is going forward, midday, the afternoon hours, there's also a little bit of restlessness, nervousness in the air, seriousness and some pressure and some weight, because the moon has all difficult aspects all day long. It's not going to last, but during Tuesday here, it's kind of, not the easiest. Now, of course, I'm speaking in generality, so it doesn't mean every single person will be affected by this. If you have a lot of cardinal planets in your birth chart in the first few degrees, then you're already under some big stuff, and you could definitely be feeling it today as the moon goes through here. But it's still moon square Saturn, moon square Neptune. We're having to connect to this dynamic of changing of the systems and the structures on a global level. It's happening, but on personal levels, wherever you have Aries in your birth chart, there is things being built and there's things being dissolved away at the same time from the past. It's basically a new era where you have Aries, and we're picking up on that sense of changes that may not feel comfortable or easy necessarily. So there might be a block, there might be some restrictions, some limitations today in some way. There might be some blind spots where you didn't see the block coming, perhaps, and that can be on different levels. I mean, you could just be, in some cases, it could be driving in town and hitting every stoplight, or there could be traffic, there could be roadblocks. There could just be issues that slow things down, basically, and show a little bit of some restriction coming in. And again, that can be on different levels, different categories of life. Some cases it could be big stuff. Other cases it might just be minor, temporary delays of some kind. And again, with the moon square Neptune, it's kind of confusing. There's some uncertainty in the air about things today and some blind spots that we perhaps could run into. So try to check yourself. If you're getting wrapped up into emotional pressure, don't let yourself feel too down. Don't let yourself get too down or get sucked into, being too overly negative about things or your future. Just kind of be aware of this in the background, and then also why other people might be reacting in their own mood today. You'll see why. And again, it's not going to affect every single person. So that's, again, going on midday. And the moon is also going to be building this in conjunction with Mercury. That's going to be later on tonight. Yeah, later tonight on Tuesday. So also having to adjust between the mood, the heart, and the mind. They're on two different pages. They're not really connecting or cooperating with each other. Again, Mercury down here in Leo wants to be more self-expressive, more bold and dramatic, more outward, a little bit extra. And the moon is dry, like I said, in Capricorn. Feelings are a little more dry, a little more toned down, serious. So two different vibes there that we're connected to. And then the moon will be opposite Venus for Tuesday night. So by late tonight, and this is super late, the 11 o'clock hour on the West Coast, so it's going to be early morning hours on the East Coast and in Europe. And this is where the moon is as far away from the pleasurable side of life as you can get, the opposition. So it's like it's connecting to both sides of this, where we want pleasure and the good stuff of life. That tends to be, in this phase, more in your private area, your home life, the place that you can let loose and be comfortable and indulge. Usually that's the home here, versus feeling responsible for your future and work and this more seriousness. But again, it's a little more challenging to feel like you can have everything you want in this moment with the moon this far away from Venus. But still, we have this Venus and Jupiter building up. This still is one of the most positive areas of the chart, is wherever you have the sign Cancer. So again, there could also be big real estate deals that are building for certain people this week into next week, especially probably by next week you might see some results for that. There could be stuff building up this week about it, but I would say, by Tuesday, late Monday into Tuesday is when that conjunction is perfect. And as I said last week, with Venus squaring Saturn and Neptune, there'd be a bump in the road with the market, and the market did go down all last week, and now it's coming back up, it's rebounding, which I would expect to see more of something pretty abundant with this Venus-Jupiter conjunction. But still, in this moment, the circumstances are far away from that, and so there's a need for pleasure and indulgences. It's just a matter of, are we able to be totally fulfilled by that in this moment? It is kind of a culmination point for certain things about Venus. Relationships are also going to be changing. Relationships are going to be a big part of the changing of gears that are going to come in, that I'll explain with this kite configuration about to happen. It's basically when the moon reaches Aquarius that kite is really going to be powerful. But this is the beginning of this culmination point for relationships, pleasure, and a positive dynamic here that's going to start to show in a certain way for certain people. I wish I could say it will be for everybody, by next week. But again, I'll let you know which degrees in the birth chart will be most affected by the positivity of Venus-Jupiter. All right, so that's what we have for Tuesday. Let's move this forward to Wednesday, August 6th. The moon is still in Capricorn, of course, being ruled by Saturn on the world point and showing a lot of new things, trying to move forward. And Mars is still at this critical degree for most of the day on Wednesday, the first half of the day. And we start things off with the moon opposite Jupiter. So things are actually pretty big, a lot of big circumstances, big mood, big feelings first thing on Wednesday morning as people are getting up. And again, it's still connected to the beginning stages of some sort of a culmination, for potential real estate deals, for financial deals, something more positive for certain individuals, especially if you have planets, let's say 7 to 13 to 4, let's say 7 to 14 degrees in Cancer in your birth chart. Especially if you have the moon about 13 to 14 degrees, I mean, you could really be getting something positive for your own life here starting this week, but probably even into next week. But, there's potential here for people that have degrees just around, let's say 7 to 14. And it's not written in stone. It's not just those degrees. It's just that's where it's most powerful, and then there's orbs that go beyond that will still get a Jupiter transit, and Venus will cross over those degrees as well. But I think it's most powerful around 13 and 14 degrees with the exact conjunction. So again, things are starting to build up that are important, with this moon opposite these two abundant planets here, and starting to show this culmination, like I said. But still, in the meantime, in the short term here on Wednesday morning, there could still be a big mood for things, indulgences, or again, this opposition between wanting to be home or in your place of comfort and doing what you want to do and indulging in things versus responsibilities and work and things that you have to do out in the world. So the outer life versus the inner life is in this opposition first thing on Wednesday morning. And then the moon is in conjunct the sun, as I was explaining before, how we have to make this adjustment between these two very different signs, Capricorn versus Leo. It can be a very ambitious two signs when they're mixed together like this. Certain goals and ambitions that people are feeling that they want to achieve and reach out and get with certain things. But it's still kind of an in conjunction moment of having to adjust between our feelings, our mood, the current circumstances on Wednesday afternoon versus where we're putting the spotlight on and our focus and our attention, which generally wants to have fun and be heartfelt and expressive and creative and all these Leo things versus being more mature and serious and professional. So the moon and the sun, they're not really helping each other out here in this moment on Wednesday. The inner life versus the outer life, again, could be going through a little bit of discomfort, not on the same page. And let's see. Then, Mars, like I said, for the first half of the day is on this last critical minutes and will be changing signs. And that's what will happen as we go through the evening hours. Mars will ingress Libra, and it's the beginning of this kite configuration that's building up. So this, again, is a change of gears now. It's not going to necessarily be instant, and you see everything and all the results instantly here on the second half of Wednesday. It's going to be all week long that this configuration is building up and playing out. But now there is a really strong change of dynamics here. Again, this is another cardinal point. So now we have planets in all of the cardinal signs. Cardinal Grand Cross, of course, the Venus, Jupiter are pretty wide orb, away, and the moon is wide orb, but they're still all the cardinal signs, which is about taking action and initiation. So this is, again, about Mars, our action, our drive, what motivates us to do certain things is starting to change. And now with Mars in Libra, Mars is in Venus's territory. So Venus is in charge of Mars. It's like Venus is hosting Mars in a sense. So this is why Mars typically doesn't really want to be in Libra, because it's a Venus sign where Mars has to play nice. Again, it's like a warrior with all of its armor and gear walking into a china shop. It can easily break things. So we have to be more careful. We have to play nicer. So Mars, the planet of war and military, is coming into this culmination point on the world stage even. So there's likely to be, for the rest of this week and into next week, some major developments on the world stage about certain changing of dynamics on military levels, maybe for the positive. I still feel like there's a lot of tension here, so don't get me wrong. This is what I was saying before, that this is connected to something bigger. There's a bigger perspective here that is positive down the road that we're going to see results of. But I don't know instantly necessarily. And again, there can still be some challenges within this because there's a lot of dynamics. There's a lot of aspects Mars is connected to. So we have a lot of different influences. And typically Mars is a little more challenged here in Libra. It's in its debilitation, and it's building up the opposition to Saturn, which is also in its debilitation. And yet Saturn likes Libra. Saturn is exalted in Libra, and Mars likes Aries, where it's in its rulership. So there's some sort of a reception going on here as well that's a little more positive than normally what we would see with Mars in Libra. Also, because Mars is in Libra, being ruled by Venus, well, Venus is next to Jupiter. So it leads back to this positive conjunction that's building up exact by next week. So things are starting to change. But I think in the meantime, we're still going to have to adjust. There's going to be a lot of adjustment to our action, a lot of adjustment to the world stage with action and developments. There's going to be a stronger need for some sort of new negotiations on the world stage with different nations. And that can also involve conflicts on the world stage starting to change in some way, hopefully for the positive. I think there's a strong possibility that this could be a change for the positive. But we also need to work with it on an individual level as well. This is definitely about individuals, and especially if you have cardinal positions in your birth chart. If you don't, then it may not be as relevant, but still, Mars here, like I said before, is going to be getting support from a lot of different planets, which is another reason why it can do better than it normally can do, because it has the support of Uranus, a trine from Uranus. Mars has the support from Pluto, from Aquarius, and then this opposition is the culmination from Mars conjunct Saturn and Neptune that took place back in April and May of 2024. So almost a year and a half ago with that conjunction, it was a new start for the action plan on the world stage and for certain individuals. And now Mars has gone all the way around and is reaching this culmination and a turning point for things that have been building up already for over a year. So again, this is going to be something quite significant, I believe, showing in different ways. So this is air. Mars is coming into Libra, so that's an air sign, and it's getting support from the outer planets, Pluto and Uranus, in air as well. So it's also, again, about being willing to do things that are different now, initiating things, taking action on things that are about new ideas, new thoughts, new possibilities, being innovative and creative. And it's also, more importantly, about people, relationships. From this point forward, other people and relationships start to become more and more significant for us. It's not just about the individual freedom and independence and doing whatever we want. Now there's a need to find a better balance with others and be working with others, be willing to get support from others or support other people as well. That can include community, that can be individual relationships, one-on-one connections with people, so it doesn't necessarily have to be romantic stuff, but it can also indicate there's going to be a change of gears and a turning point around romantic relationships from this point forward as well. In certain cases, not everybody, of course, it all depends on your birth chart, but generally this is talking about relationships, cooperating with other people, supporting other people, and getting support from people is a part of what can help us move forward in better ways. If we try to go it alone in this phase, that's where we might struggle. If we try to maintain our freedom and our independence and just doing whatever we want and not thinking about other people, that's where we're going to struggle a little more. If we feel like we don't have support from others, or we reject the support from others and not willing to think outside the box and try new things that are available here in a way that we've never had before. Again, all this is really rare. This does not happen very often, if ever, having this configuration of this kite building up. So a kite is kind of a grand trine, basically. There's a grand trine in this with Mars trine Pluto, Mars trine Uranus, and Pluto Uranus are in a trine. And then Saturn Neptune form this kite. So a kite overall is a positive configuration, a grand trine. It's like all these planets are supporting each other And because this is so rare, it's never happened in our lifetime, it's on this world stage about the future, about this new era that I've been talking about for over a year, probably years, that's, that we're coming into. And if you get all political, of course, if you get into partisan politics, you're not going. If you're against positivity, you're not going to want to see this as positive. But if you just let politics go and you don't get into all the political stuff, and you just look at astrology only, this is a positive configuration that says there is a new era shaping up that says that we have possibilities to do things in new ways that we've never had before. And we're seeing things in the world that have never happened before. And that's because it's so rare here. So again, it's about really being open to change. Cardinal is all about changes, making things happen in different new ways. Now the sun and the full moon will be in these fixed signs, but so you have to be a little bit careful of being overly stubborn or overly fixed. But I think that there's too much cardinal here and some mutable to be overly fixed. Changes want to happen. But the thing about trines and sextiles and a grand trine, normally the grand trine doesn't force anything. It shows a gift. It shows a possibility, an opportunity that's available, but it's not necessarily showing that it's forced for people and they have to do it. Whereas the kite configuration that has the opposition that Mars is coming into is more of a dynamic, a tension dynamic that kind of shows it's more motivational for people to take the opportunity that's available here. So you have to look and be open. Just pay attention to what's going on in your life. If any new opportunities come your way, you definitely should consider taking them, because it's probably something quite rare. Or it could also be about ideas. Remember, Mercury has been in this retrograde phase, kind of trying to process something about the future as well, or going through a certain dynamic that's not quite ready. Well, we've gone through that, and Mercury's slowing down to station direct by next week. So we're also coming into a new perception, a better understanding. Plus, the moon has a lot of light. It's building up to fullness, which is also kind of a culmination around awareness and consciousness expansion. So really pay attention to things this week, either coming at you from the outside or your own perception, your own ideas, things that just come to your attention that you're thinking about. You might want to consider, if you do have any bright ideas, to take action on those things. It could very well work out to be positive. I don't think, again, it's not anything just instant necessarily. It's a process all this week into next week that I think will be showing this, because Mars, will all throughout the week here will be connecting to these different planets, like each day of the week, not just all at once, but it still has this wider orb of this kite configuration. But I'm not going to lie, there's still a lot of tension here with this, with the opposition to Saturn and Neptune. So it's also about a little bit of putting on the brakes in some cases, feeling like, again, we're not just here to be in this moment. In this particular phase, it's not so much about freedom and independence. Again, it has a lot to do with relationships and thinking about other people, working with other people. But the Saturn opposition says we also have to start to slow down too. And not just race, do things overly quickly and just do whatever we want. It's like time to be a little more mature and serious about matters. Now, this is still a lot of tension. So, there could still be people that are impulsively doing things that aren't necessarily positive too in the world. And there's still potential of some, events with this opposition that's culminating with the full moon as well. Things are coming to a head. It can be a little bit of a crazy full moon vibe that's building up from this point forward. But again, it's all going to lead to a turning point that has a lot of positive potential, especially for the people that are wise and mature and thinking long term and in control, of their emotions and their impulses and things like that. But still, Mars here, again, most people are going to start to feel this need to play nice. But Mars is Mars, and it's always important when we're doing tropical astrology not to get too carried away with the signs, because if we take away all the signs and we just look at the aspects, Mars is opposite Saturn and Neptune. It doesn't matter what the signs are, there's still an opposition here between these two planets. So, but still, this is something that we haven't seen in this particular way in a while, or ever, with the Neptune component and then these outer planets. So I still feel like we have a lot of support if we're willing to work with these new dynamics and these new ways for how we take action here. So it could be a little bit frustrating, as we're going through this dynamic this week. What we can do right now versus what we need to be doing, things like that. Again, slowing down. Again, there could still be some delays in some cases, some blocks here and there. But trust the process. Trust, of what's going on, that it might be for a reason that you don't necessarily see in that moment of why. So relationships become a bigger theme, partnerships, and it comes back down to, again, safety and security. Now, Mars is going to be highly motivated around safety and security issues. So that's going to be on levels around nations, thinking more about safety and security and new developments about safety and security. It could be about the homeland, big homeland stuff in different places around the world. On individual levels, it can be about your own home, your own family, your own living situation, real estate stuff in some cases for people, and all of that. So again, it's a pretty big change of gears, a change of energy overall, and it's a lot of mental energy too. Again, this is an air grand trine in place. So it's about taking action on ideas and thoughts and just trying to be more diplomatic, more graceful, more compromising, and not just be overly independent. So with that said, let's move this forward here. And the last aspect of the day will be the moon trine, the north node. Moon sextile north node and moon trine south node. So it's also a fateful time here on Wednesday, second half of the day, of whatever is happening. It's having a long-term effect on the future. All right, so moving this forward into Thursday, August 7. The moon is at the last degrees of Capricorn. Again, a lot of light building up. We're getting close to full moon vibes. Once the moon gets to Aquarius, it'll be full moon vibes technically. But in the meantime, the moon is squaring Chiron for the first part of Thursday. So we do have some sensitivity here that generally is being picked up on about the self and your independence and your individuality and your confidence about things. And there could be some situations in the world that have shown some conflict that's still in place. Some wounds, some injuries, accidents are still, possible with this dynamic as well. You still have to be very careful and cautious this week with your overall action. That's why there's a need to change gears and reassess things and take things slower. And then the rest of the day kind of turns into this moment where we have a lot of this grand trine kite showing. Again, it's an opportunity. And that's going to be after the moon changes signs and ingresses Aquarius. So pretty big mood change here for Thursday evening and Thursday night. So most of the day, the moon is in Capricorn, that more serious, drier mood and more professional, more about goals and ambitions and work stuff. And now the moon coming in to Aquarius, there's a change of mood and dynamics, but the moon is right next to Pluto. So things are still quite intense and powerful here. And yet you can see this kite showing very powerfully at this point that the moon is bringing it lower to us on this more, emotional level. Circumstances are connecting to this kite. And this is the moment, Thursday night, that we can really pick up on what this is talking about. Yeah, it's mostly Thursday evening, Thursday night, early morning hours for other people around the world. And the last aspect will be when that moon reaches Pluto. So it's building up. The moon trine Mars, the moon trine Uranus, the moon sextile Saturn and Neptune. So the moon is really connected to all of these new dynamics in the world. So as the moon comes into Aquarius, there's a need for more detachment now, emotional detachment. It's more intellectual, but it is full moon vibes. So at the same time, there's strong emotions building up. There's intensity building up with this full moon. There's a lot of light on the moon. So there's, again, this building up of awareness and consciousness. But things are also trying to go through transformation. Circumstances and dynamics are trying to change for the rest of the week. Moon coming into Aquarius puts more emphasis on groups and friends and community for the next 2.5 days. And that's where there's this culmination point within those areas of life. So check your chart. Where do you have Aquarius? That's where the biggest energy is this week for you. That's culminating, a turning point from 6 months ago when there was an Aquarius new moon in that area. Now things are coming to a head. That's been building up, for the past 6 months roughly. But this is all about air. There's an air grand trine. So it's more about up in the head and thoughts and ideas and communications. And just also more of a social vibe. But it still could be pretty intense socially because it's a full moon. And it's next to Pluto at first. So still, and plus Pluto and the moon are connected to Mars in this new dynamic. So Mars is trying to play nice, but is it able to completely is the question. So just really pay attention to your thoughts and your feelings, any communications that come in for you on Thursday night into Friday morning or so. Just see how you're feeling. Maybe some people won't feel anything or notice anything. That's possible. Other people might. It all depends on how this aligns with your birth chart. But this is on a global, this is for the world. This is the background energy for the whole world. And it shows that the world is going to be having some major developments with new things. And there's just a lot of cooperation here for new things to be happening. So again, this is a gift. This is an opportunity. And Mars building that tension can motivate certain people to be taking action on this possibility. For other people, it might just slip by. And, they might not take advantage of it. Unless this Mars-Saturn is really connected to your birth chart, perhaps. Or you can consciously take advantage of this by knowing astrology and really take action on things this week if you see the opportunity, like I was saying before. So again, Thursday night seems to be something quite rare here, but also powerful and intense. And there could be still some undercurrents of intensity and power control issues within group and community and friendships. And then again, Mercury now is at 4 degrees. It's retrograde, stationary degree. So it's very, very slow. And as the moon begins to oppose Mercury, that'll be the following day. On Friday, August 8th, we start things off early morning hours with the moon opposite Mercury. And again, we're starting to get this culmination about Mercury retrograde of our thoughts, our ideas, what we've been processing, anything that we've been going back and dealing with things of the past is starting to reach fullness and a culmination and a turning point. But it can also be this culmination about consciousness and understanding and more awareness about things that we've been processing. Again, it comes back to the heart. Have you been processing, like when I talked about the Leo new moon and what your heart is calling for, what you would like to be doing? Where do you stand with fun and creativity and just more heart and passion in your life and having a better life and following that? Well, at this point, we're at that turning point with this full moon of what's developed in that way and where you stand and your awareness about what your heart wants and what it's calling for the future. And then perhaps you can start taking the appropriate action to develop those things that you would like to have or do that your heart wants. But again, this is a pretty social dynamic for the next couple of days with this. Leo and Aquarius are very social signs. So there could just be a lot about group stuff and community and friendship stuff, organizations with big news. Like I said, Aquarius is also the sign of science and technology. There could be new developments in science and technology that's coming out in the open in some way this week into next week. And then, of course, it's politics. There's no way around it. There's some big stuff in politics that are peaking this week into next week. All right, so then Mars is trine Uranus. So again, Mars has this help from Uranus that's very new for the world with Uranus and Gemini. Again, it's generally about this revolutionary thought process, revolutionary ideas. A lot about technology as well on the world stage. Like I said, I think it's coming out. But we have this opening to do things differently, to be innovative and creative in certain ways with this. And within relationship dynamics. So don't forget that part. It's about others. It's not just about the self. It's about including other people in this process for the best results. Now, with that said, Mars is still Mars. It can still stir up a lot of tension within relationship dynamics. But it's just that in this particular case, we have a better opportunity to work with that than normal. So don't just be doing the same old. Be willing to step outside the box and try new things. And then the moon is in conjunct to Venus and Jupiter, so we're really having to make that adjustment between this really indulgent, big, positive side within your Cancer area of life, Jupiter and Venus there, versus the circumstances and the mood that's connected to the group and the community. So adjusting to your inner world where there's pleasure and indulgences that you'd rather be in versus the outside world in the public, in the social side of life. They're kind of on two different pages as the day is moving forward here on Friday evening, Friday afternoon. And then we also see that Mars is exactly opposite Saturn. So this is the culmination point, like I said, to what was kind of started back in April of 2024 on the world level and then on individual levels, whether we're conscious of what that is or not. So this is where we still kind of need to slow down, but yet, again, here's this grand trine kite. And again, there's just so much opportunity here to work with this. It's just not your normal Mars opposite Saturn, which is, we get this all the time, that part isn't that rare in each sign. Now, in these signs, it's rare. But last time this happened, Neptune wasn't here. So it's just something we've never seen before, basically. It's very different. So you can't just, it's not just your normal interpretation. This is too rare just to be normal here. And it's still, though, a Mars opposite Saturn, so there still could be some tension, some frustration, but that tension is what can motivate us to take the action on this kite in this grand trine. So again, it can motivate people to change gears and to do certain things that they may normally, may not do. And if you do it, if you're open, I think it can have positive results, like I said. So still, though, there's something serious going on here, most likely on Friday evening, Friday night. Remember, even though the full moon is on Saturday, technically, it's early morning. It's like right after midnight on Friday. So the moon is going to be at its fullest, like max tension, really on late Friday into the early morning hours of Saturday morning. By the time we get to Saturday night and the world thinks it's the full moon, we're way past the peak of it already. So, this is where knowing astrology is helpful as well, knowing that the biggest tension is late Friday into Saturday morning. All right, and so we're building this moon in Aquarius up all night long. And it's all, Mars opposite Saturn. Still be very cautious and be careful of your surroundings. On Friday night, it is full moon vibes. Can be a little bit crazy and wild in some cases, especially with the group and the community and the, any kind of parties could be a little bit critical. This is kind of party vibes with the full moon in Aquarius opposite the sun in Leo. And then at the same time having Mars opposite Saturn. This could also be, so this is where it's hard to generalize because it can play out differently in different places around the world. In some cases, this is still, in the bigger picture, positive. But there can still be some conflict here in relationship or social gatherings. This also has a little bit of a law enforcement vibe to it in some way. So still be a little bit cautious just because it is a full moon and Mars is opposite Saturn. If you are out and about late Friday night into Saturday morning. And then we do get to this full moon, like I said, on Saturday, August 9, early morning hours. And the full moon is basically late 16 degrees into 17 degrees. I guess I could put it perfectly here. It's going to be maybe exactly 17. Well, no, 16 degrees, 59 minutes. So like basically 17 degrees, but technically 16:59. So check your chart. Do you have any personal planets at, let's just say 16, 17, 18 degrees of Aquarius? If so, then this full moon is right on one of those planets in your chart, and whatever that planet rules in your chart, I can't tell you that. It's, I can't generalize that for you, but if you do have something right there, then this could be a significant full moon for you. And then wherever you have Aquarius in your birth chart, the middle of Aquarius, 16 to 17 degrees, even if you don't have any personal planets there, you have Aquarius in your birth chart, and that's a certain area of your life where things are illuminated. There's more consciousness, expansion, and awareness about that area of your life. And this full moon is ruled by Saturn on this world point. So on the world stage, it's definitely something culminating this week into next week about politics and government and world developments. But like I said, on the personal level, wherever you have Aquarius, it's generally about groups, friends, community, and a social area of your life. So something is at a turning point in that area of your chart that's been building up the past 6 months, as I said before. Now, this full moon doesn't really have too many aspects at all. They're wide orb aspects, but it's really not highly aspected at all, this full moon. So it's something isolated in a way, coming to a head that's coming into our awareness. So generally, it's going to be about, again, science and technology, something that's coming out, something is at a turning point about some sort of technology that's been developed, and we're going to see the result of it probably over the next couple of weeks coming out into the world. And then some sort of a change in politics that's happened at this point, like I said, and then your general community stuff. Friendships at a turning point. Relationships are at a turning point. There's a new dynamics in relationships from this point forward with that Mars in Libra and the moon in Aquarius. But no, it's still peak emotional energy of the month. In Aquarius, people are different. This is a full moon that's showing people, the way people are reacting, their emotional responses. It's not just traditional and normal. They're doing their own unique thing and how they're expressing their feelings and their emotions. It's also peak of intellectual energy, being objective, detached about things. So even though there's big energy, big mood, big feelings, a little bit wild in some cases, it's a little more wild and less disciplined in Aquarius because Saturn rules Aquarius. But because Saturn is debilitated in Aries, Saturn is not at its most mature ever in this particular full moon. So people are a little more wanting their freedom and independence in this phase, but yet it's a turning point around that freedom and independence to try to incorporate others more and work with others more and just be more compromising with others. But in this moment, it's there's a lot of tension going on, again, with the opposition with Mars and with this full moon happening. And then Mars is also opposite Neptune. So again, in some cases, it can be inspiring for people. In other cases, people are kind of still trying to figure something out, having to go with the flow a little bit. There could still be some blind spots. Things could happen that were unexpected that people didn't foresee in some cases. So it can go either way, being inspired or being a little bit dazed and confused. But again, it's a full moon. So overall, it is about consciousness and awareness that's coming in. So it can also be, in some cases, disillusionment, seeing things in new ways that we didn't see before. Again, it's a culmination point around the Neptune and our action. So the awareness causes people to take action in new ways after this full moon and building up to this full moon. And then the moon sextile Chiron as it moves forward from this full moon. It's a pretty wide orb, like I said, so it's not super tight, but there's possibilities of feeling better about the self, your individuality, your freedom, and what you're able to do now that Mars is getting past the opposition and having support from Pluto. So then we can feel more empowered as we get past this full moon, less restrictions, and this slowdown or this frustration that could have come in for some people this week. As we get to this weekend, we can start to separate from that and feel like we have the ability to be doing something that we weren't able to do before. And so feeling better about the self, and group and friendship could help with that process as well. And then the moon changes signs as we get to Saturday night. So most of the day on Saturday, the moon is in Aquarius full. And then late Saturday night, the moon ingresses Pisces for a big mood change. Circumstances begin to change for the next 2.5 days. And now the moon is being ruled by this Jupiter that has Venus next to it. So again, this full moon can have positive results for something, for some people. So the moon coming into Pisces now is water, much more sensitive, kind of this pull for people into their own world or from behind the scenes. But also the moon will be applying towards that north node of destiny. So things that have happened are shaping the future. So just a general mood change, more intuitive, more sensitive, more inward, more imaginative and creative, and it leads back to home, family, and your inner world, and what you want, what you desire, indulgences. And then we get to Sunday, August 10. The moon is still in Pisces now, like I said, for the next 2.5 days. But the moon is also squaring Uranus in the early morning hours of Saturday night into Sunday. So a little bit of unpredictability, some surprises are possible, some volatility is possible, mood changes, just everything starts to change after that full moon. So Sunday morning, early morning, there could be something that's disruptive potentially. Probably not on a bigger level, but it could be. And then the moon is also in conjunct to Mars. So again, this moon says I would rather be behind the scenes, indulging in my own life, my own personal stuff, but it's also having to adjust to relationships and other people in your life. And then Mars is trine Pluto for Sunday. But look at it as bigger than just one day. It's this whole week into next week. But again, it's more important because Mars has gotten past the opposition now, and now there's this support from Pluto. So now we can shift gears, have more power available to us, especially in social relationship dynamics that we're dealing with others. But it's still Mars trine Pluto. It can still be a lot of determination, resourcefulness, again, having support in ways that we normally wouldn't have for something, and things like that. And then the moon is in conjunct to Mercury. So a lot of adjustments. There can still be some agitation, some irritation here and there. So moon and Mercury on two different pages, but here's that S next to Mercury showing that it's beginning to station, slowing down to station direct officially by Monday. but it's starting that process here on Sunday. So very strong Mercury. Remember, when Mercury stations, either retrograde or direct, it's more powerful than normal. It's more amplified. So there's a lot of news, information, a lot of mental stimulation, a lot of passionate, heartfelt communication going on. And the circumstances are more intuitive and sensitive and inward and behind the scenes and private a little bit, trying to adjust to that strong Mercury as we're going through Sunday morning. And then the sun is also in conjunct to the North Node of Destiny. So things that are happening, we're also adjusting to the future or pushing us on the future. You know, again, being pulled into behind the scenes or distractions in some way from what we're focused on, the outward life versus the inward life, things like that, adjusting to. And then the moon is trying this Jupiter and Venus on Sunday evening, Sunday night, depending on where you live. Sunday night for most people. Well, yeah, Sunday night for most people. So Sunday night can be quite indulgent. Privately, it's more inward, emotional indulgence, nurturing, being in your own world. Here's Venus and Jupiter so close together. Again, this is a really positive area of your chart where wherever you have Cancer, the middle of Cancer in your chart, that's where the abundance is. And circumstances are very much aligned with that potential on Sunday night for people. But it's private. It's not necessarily out there and being seen. It's more inward, behind the scenes and in your own environment. So maybe some indulgence coming in for Sunday night into next week, but I think it's on a bigger level of what this is talking about. So again, if you have personal planets around these degrees, 12, 13, 14 here, really 13 and 14 degrees of Cancer. I would love to see if you had your moon right there. If you have your moon at 13 and 14, that's an excellent position already because you have a strong moon in Cancer, and then you get this rare Jupiter-Venus transit. I can't promise every single person will see something from this, even if you do have a personal planet there, but the odds are a lot higher that you do have something potentially happening in a positive way there. It could be feeling more supported. It could be literally some sort of financial thing that you have available in some way. It could be a resource. You could have some positive development in your life that's emotionally nurturing you, feeling good. If you have your sun at 13, 14, or around those degrees, you could also be feeling like you have some opportunity of support in some rare way that's happening. And again, this will be continuing into next week on Monday when it's exact Tuesday night, or Monday night into Tuesday as well. And again, the United States, this is the sun sign of the United States. So this conjunction is right on the USA sun. Anybody that says that that would not be positive for the United States is probably biased and doesn't know astrology. When you let go of your political stuff and you just look at the astrology, it can really give you insights on what's happening here. So again, I think on the United States level, there is something here that's developing on either a financial level, a deal, or something positive for the United States could be showing here by next week. But again, on an individual level, I hope that you do have a personal planet. You know, it's mostly the inner planets like Mercury, the Sun, Venus. Or if you have your Jupiter there, you're having your Jupiter return with Venus, which is like the next 12 years are going to be awesome for you. You know, it all depends on what you have there. If you have your own Venus there, then you're having your Venus return with Jupiter. So your next 12 months roughly can be very abundant. So in some cases, it doesn't mean you'll instantly see this, you know, right on this day here of Sunday or Monday or Tuesday. In some cases, it can talk about seeds being planted for something positive that will show down the road as well. So again, those are the people most affected by this. And I really look at the conjunction as the most powerful. Now, if you have Pisces at 12, 13, 14, or Scorpio 12, 13, 14, you're getting the trines, which something's available. It may not be as strong. The sextile to the earth signs, Taurus, the opposition to Capricorn, maybe, Virgo, possibly. Those are the earth and the water signs have the most potential for receiving this really strong positive support in some way. So the moon is picking up on that, like I said, on Sunday night for generally everybody. And then we get to Monday, August 11, and this is a powerful day. This is officially Mercury stationing direct. Now it's not moving still. It's going to take a couple days to build up momentum forward, and it's still deep in its retrograde shadow, so it's not completely done with the whole retrograde phase. It's just now direct and turning directions again. Now it's more in alignment with the flow of the other planets, except for the retrograde ones going against the grain still. But Mercury's now looking forward again, and that's a big turning point. But again, everything about Mercury is amplified, overly amplified. So communications, thoughts, people's expressions, transportation and traveling has been pretty messy. We've seen a lot of events with airliners, so I think that's on a bigger level, unfortunately. It's not just about Mercury. It's about this Pluto and Aquarius that I've said in the past, but be a little bit cautious still about traveling because, Mercury's not moving. You still have to make some adjustments here. Even though it's direct, it's still not moving. So be patient with things as well. And then we also have the nodes activated, the moon conjunct the north node of destiny. So it's a fateful day on Monday. I think overall, I believe the markets are open on Monday. I don't think there's a holiday, but if the markets are open, I would suspect that something's developing on Monday into Tuesday for the world that could be quite positive, like I said, or certain nations that have 13, 14 degrees of Cancer. I know, again, the United States does, but also the United States is Sun square Saturn, that the U.S. was born with. So it's also squaring the USA Saturn at the same time. But it's still, this is too rare not to be something quite abundant for the United States. Now, yeah, sometimes there can be, I've said this in the past, like with Jupiter and Cancer, it is generally a positive transit, but it can also bring like Earth and crisis events in the world that, or in a nation that bring the nation together in some way. But Okay, my video has shut off 2 separate times during this report that I've had to restart. And so that means it's going to take an extra hour to process. So this will probably be delayed today, but oh well. That makes sense with these aspects today. So what was I saying? Venus today, this is Monday, August 11. So yeah, the Venus, Jupiter is very positive. Sun in conjunct to the sun, or moon in conjunct to the sun. Again, having to make adjustment between behind the scenes, the sensitivity, the intuition versus what we're focused on. That's more outward, self-expressive. And then this is also Saturn sextile Uranus here on Monday. So the government has some sort of new development, like I have been saying. I feel like something really powerful is coming out on the world level, or at least with the United States. So we have this, the government has an opportunity for new ideas, new developments, being innovative. And you can see that there's this really powerful minor grand trine that I've been talking about for a long time on this world development level, the world stage, where really it's about a new era that's being developed and structured. And we're seeing new developments in that way in the world. So Saturn and Uranus are connecting. That means government is a little bit, it's not overly radical because it's a sextile. It's not like a square or anything. But Saturn and Uranus, when those two are connected, it means government is being different, innovative, trying new things. They are a little bit more revolutionary than normal. They're able to step outside the box from normal, traditional, developments and do things that are just different. And there's that opportunity on the world stage for certain governments around the world. And this is definitely connected to the United States as well on a foundational level. So just expect to see some big developments next week, after what plays out this week on the world stage. Overall, again, I think there's a lot of positivity here that we can work with and make things happen. And just know that the vibes are going to start to change now, once we get to this point by next week here on Monday and into Tuesday. And the Venus-Jupiter is one of the most positive conjunctions that we have here in the short term. and I hope it benefits you. And just know wherever you have your area of cancer, there's potentially support there, especially if you have planets there. And some people might not notice anything or see it, and that's okay. You know, every phase is not for every single person, unfortunately. But there will be a certain amount of people that do really benefit from this time frame here. All right, so that's what I have for you folks. I hope that's helpful. I'm going to get this uploaded since it's going to be a longer process to get this finished. And I hope you have a great week. Thanks for watching.